Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a great spring break. I know a lot of you are still busy with work and everything, but I hope it was still relaxing to have a little bit of extra time outside of work, not needing to study and everything. So, uh, yeah, but we're back. We're back at it. Last 6 weeks of the semester. So in this video, I'm going to be focusing on a few reactions to the last discussion boards that was a couple weeks ago with the genograms. And then I'm going to give a little bit of feedback on the self-report autobiography papers, just some general themes that I noticed and things to keep in mind for the next assignment, the career assessment interview, since there is some overlap in what you're going to be addressing with the volunteer client. Or just volunteer, I guess, not really a client. And then I'll be going over social learning theory or planned happenstance by Crumboltz, and then also going over social cognitive career theory, just a few thoughts on those. All right, so let's go to discussion reactions. So yeah, overall, I appreciated seeing, the insights that came from doing the genogram, to varying degrees, the genogram seemed applicable. For some, it seemed like, didn't really bring any new insights. But I just wanted to challenge, I don't know if challenge is the right word, but just encourage you to continue to think about the influence of family. So there appeared at times to be this assumption that, because my family's not really around me very much, then maybe they don't have significant influence on me. But family dynamics can often be a much deeper level, impact and influence than we're even consciously aware of. This is my belief system and the theories that I align with, so not every practitioner or clinician is going to think the same way. But even if you didn't really see any patterns, maybe that's the pattern. Maybe there is a pattern of chaos, of not having like any grounded influences. Maybe there's a pattern of independence in the family, that everyone kind of makes their own choices, that there's no significant enmeshment in the family system. So everyone just kind of, pursues their own paths. Maybe there's a pattern of lacking guidance, maybe not having any support. So sometimes people just kind of flounder in the family because there's no, support and guidance, when it would actually be helpful to have some. So like there could be a continuum of like being super overbearing and controlling and completely hands off and kind of abandoning almost in the career and life decision-making process. So I think both ends of that continuum or spectrum can be really challenging. And maybe just a pattern could be that there's just decision-making challenges in general. But in the end, if you haven't taken the family therapy class yet, you're also going to be doing the genogram in that class, because genograms are often used in systems. Whenever systems are particularly family systems, but I think career development is often pretty connected to one's family of origin and the influences and cultural, backgrounds and traditions that are developed there at an early age. So just one quick example about this. So intergenerational, genograms can demonstrate intergenerational norms, habits, influences, traditions. So in my family, I've even noticed that there's been a pattern of avoiding of conflict in certain sides of the family. So even back to just the stories that are told, the narratives that are told in my family, kind of one of my grandfathers was kind of, at least I kind of, from the stories I have learned, that he was somewhat apprehensive to engage in conflict, that he'd kind of avoid it to an extreme level that I think was harmful. But then that pattern, why I'm bringing that up is because that pattern, I think, played out in some of his kids, and then in myself at times, and in my family system, until, so there's just been this kind of norm and tradition to maybe avoid conflict, to just be nice, be kind, don't address, difficult situations. But that has its limitations and its challenges. So myself going through counseling and other family members going to counseling and, becoming counselors. There's several of us two of us that are counselors in my family, and counselor educators, and then social workers. Going through this education has kind of taught us, like, it's healthy to address conflict. Obviously not in an abusive manner or violent manner, but kind of finding ways to address conflict in a helpful way can really benefit the family system. So that's one influence that I've noticed intergenerational. It's kind of taken me some time to unwrap and unravel, and I'm still doing that, of kind of making sense of, like, sometimes my natural unconscious reaction seems to be fitting in with patterns that have been in my family for a long time. So that's where I want to challenge you to think a little deeper. There may not seemingly or consciously or easily accessible, or the influence might not be easily accessible of the family dynamic, but I bet it's there. So yeah, just some thoughts on that, of the genogram and thinking deeply about family dynamics. I think it benefits you personally, but also as a clinician, because clients are going to be coming in with some deeply challenging family system dynamics at times. So being able to have an eye that can kind of capture that and see into that, it can be really helpful and insightful to the client in helping them navigate their life circumstances. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give a little bit of feedback on the self-report and autobiography papers. Overall, great work. I think it's always kind of hard with, a new professor that you haven't had before. What are the expectations? How does this go? And I totally get that. The consistent challenge that I saw in most papers when there were point reductions, it was mostly due to APA issues. I was pretty, I don't know if stickler is the right word, but I think it's really important to be precise with those expectations, since you'll be writing a lot of those APA papers. So APA issues, but then mostly it was applying career theory and the career assessments to yourself. And that doesn't mean summarizing. So summarizing is just saying, here's what the results were. Applying means, here's how they show up in my life. Here's what they mean to me. This is what resonated with me. Here's what I agreed with and didn't agree with, so kind of going to a deeper level of almost analysis, but also, how does this career theory or career assessment show up in my life? Kind of seeing it in the surface of your life was what I was looking for. And basically what I talked about in the video and the announcements for the self-report autobiography, as well as the rubric and some of the just assignment information in Blackboard. So I wanted to go over this in a little bit more depth, because the rubric is pretty similar for the career assessment interview. So you're going to be going over the background of the volunteer. You're going to be going over applying the assessment in your paper to the volunteer. You're going to be applying one career theory to the volunteer. So I want to show you one quick thing on I'm going to share my screen really quick. I hope this will help make sense a little bit more. Okay, so here is, it's cutting off, it's looking weird. All right, so here's Bloom's taxonomy. Some of it's cut off, but I'll just describe it. So basically, this is a model that was developed by Bloom, of kind of how we go about learning, the deeper levels of learning. So basically, the most basic form of learning is just to remember something, to be able to, as it says here, recall the facts. So you can define what something means, but it's all external at this point. It's like, here's what other people are saying about this, and I can at least remember what it says. I might not even understand it, but I can remember what they're saying about it. So the next step is then, I can understand it. I can describe it. I can put it in my own words. I can make sense of it. I can explain these ideas. But I'm asking you to get to at least to this level of applying. So this is being able to understand the career theory and the career assessment, but then also, how do I use this information in a new environment, in a new setting? So how can I apply this information about the theory and the career assessment to a new person? What does it mean for this person? How does it show up in their life? How does the theory implement or describe or kind of help see into that person's life experience? So that goes for the career assessment and the career theory. So keep that in mind, that I'm asking for application. So obviously, once again, remember, yep, you need to understand, yep, but then you need to apply it. So really keep that in mind as you're thinking of the career assessment interview and how you go about writing that paper, that the emphasis needs to be on applying. And I put in the assignment description that keeping that background pretty short, about 1 page max. So less background, almost keeping it like a case study type description. So describe the client, their background information, about approximately 1 page, then spend about approximately 2 pages of applying the career the career theory. And then another 2 pages approximately of applying the career assessment in more depth to that individual, how it shows up in their life, what it means, how they can kind of see those results coming to fruition in their life, and how it's like impacting their career development, or how it has impacted their career development historically. So if there are any questions about that, please let me know. But I'm hoping that kind of giving some page estimates of what you need to be emphasizing and then focusing on application, I think that'll really help you get all the points, or the majority. I did decide to give, if you didn't receive all of the points yet for the career assessment and the career theory sections for the self-report autobiography papers, I wrote in there in my feedback that I'm going to let you, give it another shot in applying yourself to the career theories and the assessments. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. But April 16th is when if you choose to do that, you don't have to, but if you choose to, resubmit some more reflection-based thoughts on applying those things to yourself, you just need to turn those in to me by April 16th, and please just email them to me. Okay. All right. So the last thing that I want to cover today is going over quickly, and I'm not going to go into a lot of depth with social learning theory or planned happenstance and social cognitive career theory, because I did a lot of that in the written lecture. So if you haven't read the written lecture yet, pause this video and go read that. So what I am going to add is, I need to share my screen again. For some reason, when I was thinking about social cognitive career theory and planned happenstance, I just thought of several different continuums. I think this can kind of help make sense of career theory when you think of them on continuums in several different areas. So I was thinking that, certain career theories are going to be much more focused on action rather than insights, or certain approaches are more insight focused than action focused. So for instance, person-centered theory is much more focused on insight. Existential is much more focused on insight. And the belief is that, as people gain greater insight into who they are, more self-awareness, then that will then change their behaviors, change their actions. So the other side is, as we change actions, that'll change how we see ourselves and how we feel about ourselves. So neither one is right or wrong. They're just different. I see the social cognitive career theory as a little bit more on the action heavy side. There is some focus on the inside of our self-efficacy beliefs, so kind of analyzing those beliefs and those outcome expectations. So there is some insight there, but then a lot of it is about then setting those goals and then learning from those goals. Planned happenstance, I kind of see in a similar way. A lot of the focus is on action, as described in the written lecture and in the Scharf text. Part of the success of, like, if planned happenstance work, career development work is successful, that means that the client is doing things outside of session. They are acting in different ways. They are taking new risks, new career risks. So the emphasis on action. The next continuum that I wanted to focus on is this continuum of thinking and feeling. So once again, certain approaches are much more on the feeling side. I see Savickus's work of the career construction interview a little bit more on the feeling side. Obviously, he's probably pretty close to the center there, but social cognitive career theory and planned happenstance, to me, they're focused much more on this thinking side. That doesn't mean they don't focus on feelings if they surface for clients. Absolutely, clinicians would be reflecting feelings, but the internal theoretical framework that the counselor is using to make sense of their work is emphasizing feelings a little bit more. So the focus is on, once again, the self-efficacy beliefs, outcome expectations. So once again, on these cognitive structures. And then the next thing that I want to focus on is environment, the focus of the environment and the individual. So planned happenstance has a pretty big emphasis on how do outside uncontrollable chance factors impact the individual. Social cognitive career theory, context is a big part of this. Background, contextual factors, proximal factors. So how does the environment shape, impact, and shift the perspectives and opportunities of the individual. So I think that's pretty heavily influenced, or I guess focused upon in both of the theories, is the focus on environment. I think planned happenstance does also have a bit of focus on the individual, of their internal learning process. Learning is a huge focus in planned happenstance of social learning theory by Crumbolts. So I think it kind of is in the middle ground, maybe for the planned happenstance social learning approach, but social cognitive career theory, it seems like it really focuses quite a bit on the environment. And I'm going to pull up, if I can. So in the article for this week, the Brown and Lent article, it's an application of social cognitive career theory to a lot of different populations. So for example, social cognitive career theory was applied to individuals with considering their social class, to women and people of color, to people with disabilities, veterans, immigrants, refugees, people transitioning out of prison, family members of those experiencing job loss. So a lot has been focused on the social cognitive career theory. It's been applied to a lot of different populations. Let's see even more here. So it's social cognitive career theory's been applied to African American populations, to the link between sexual identity disclosure and self-efficacy beliefs, outcome expectations, and career development. It's been applied to Spanish college students, to Chinese college students, based on so there's a lot of different groups. So once again, I think this is another emphasis of how social cognitive career theory really honors and values the environment, how it plays an effect on the individual. And the last continuum before I wrap up the video is the link between being directive and non-directive in the approach. So sometimes you could even see, so if the counselor is more directive, there's usually this assumption that the counselor is more of the expert. If the counselor is, less directive or non-directive, then the client is more honored as the expert of their lives. So once again, I don't see social cognitive career theory and planned happenstance is way over here in directive. There is a partnership, there is a value of the relationship, but I do see it as a little bit more directive. That's, the counselor is kind of focusing, or especially planned happenstance, with the emphasis being so much on learning, that the counselor is almost teaching the client how to make these career decisions, is teaching the client how to view indecision as maybe much more as being open-ended and open-minded, as seeing chance factors. How can they teach clients to prepare to take advantage of chance circumstances? So that teaching role kind of assumes that the counselor is the teacher or the expert. And there's not actually a lot of research of applying social cognitive career theory in career counseling work. It's usually just kind of, a lot of work's been done on like, how can it make sense at a more broad level of the career development process. So I think it could look very different on the ground for the clinician. It could be a little bit more on the non-directive side, like the perspectives of self-efficacy, outcome expectations, setting goals, etc. in social cognitive career theory could just be the inner framework that the counselor is using to make sense of the client's work, and then they're using a lot of the basic counseling skills to reflect. So it might just be impacting what is the counselor choosing to reflect. Maybe they're focusing much more on like, oh, there's their belief, their limiting belief that we need to talk about. Oh, there's their outcome expectations. So that's what they're going to choose to like focus on. So for me, there wasn't a clear exact idea of where social cognitive career theory is on this continuum of directive and non-directive. But I just wanted to give you these 4 different continuums just to be thinking about, how does theory apply to me? How can I make sense of theory? How can I distinguish theory? And I think continuums can kind of be a good way, especially with these 4 continuums that we have with thinking, feeling, action, insight, environment, individual, and directive and non-directive. That can kind of be helpful. Like, what resonates with me? What is my belief system? Where do I kind of stand on these continuums? Can be helpful as you're making sense of what theories align for you. Okay, that's all I'm going to cover for today. So if you have any questions or need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out, but I look forward to another week.